Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Working in retail has its challenges, but sometimes those challenges are downright surreal. In today's story, we delve into the experience of a retail worker who faced an unexpected form of psychological torture. The store's music system malfunctioned, causing Elastic Heart by Sia to play on an endless loop. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. We all know the music is repetitive, but it's not supposed to be at full-blown cantina band level. For the past decade, I've worked in women's fashion retail. This story's from a couple of years ago when I was a full-time assistant manager at a store in the mall. We had a staff of about a dozen people at any given time. My store had one of those music systems where new songs and playlists are automatically pushed to the hard drive every month. Corporate tended to keep the playlist pretty static, however, only tossing a few new songs in here and there. It was pretty standard retail pop music, and it all kind of blended together over the months and years. Is it any wonder we barely noticed when the playlist started to dwindle? The computer was deleting songs by its schedule, but not receiving any new downloads. Normally, we'd hear the same songs every day, but only once. We caught on when we started to hear the same songs multiple times. Help desk was in no hurry to do their job. We watched, listened, helplessly as the selection narrowed more and more over the next few weeks until it was down to about a dozen songs on repeat. One morning, I went in with my sales associate to open the store. It was one of the last few days before Labor Day weekend. I turned on the music when it was time to open the doors, and Elastic Heart by Sia was playing. Neither of us really made a note of that at first. That song ended, and the next song began. "Hey, didn't we just hear this song?" my associate asked. "What? Did we?" I responded, honestly uncertain and distracted by morning paperwork. "I'm pretty sure we did," she said. "Well, maybe it's the end of the playlist and it just happened to restart the shuffle with the same song," I suggested. She agreed that might be it. But in our elastic hearts, we felt a deep sense of dread, and our fears were confirmed when the song proceeded to play a third time in a row. We laughed, since that's about all we could do, especially since Help Desk was aware of the problem already. I wanted to just turn it off, but my associates couldn't handle the quiet. Over the first 3 days, Elastic Heart would have played approximately 453 times during open hours. I personally would have heard it 280 times over my 3 shifts, not counting my breaks or non-open hours. Even if I were only subjected to 5 hours of music per shift, which would be a conservative estimate, especially since the holiday weekend meant everyone was almost always on the sales floor, I still would have heard it about 200 times in 72 hours. Sure, we laughed at the absurdity, and we had the comedy of watching customer reactions as they tried to remember whether or not they just heard the same song. Still, combined with the stress of the holiday weekend, tempers started to fray. Even the customers were more irritable, and they only had to hear the song a handful of times. I've often wondered about the psychological effects of involuntarily hearing the same few songs on a loop. Hearing just the one song over and over for hours and days on end? Well, that takes it from brainwashing to downright torture. The humorous aspect soon withered, and I felt like we were lab rats being experimented upon. I couldn't take it anymore and refused to turn it on by the 4th day, no matter what the part-timer said. To add to the nonsense, the music system didn't have any standard jacks or plugs, so we couldn't just hook our phones up and play something else over the stereo. We ended up bringing in our own Bluetooth speakers and using our personal data plans to stream music, because of course the store did not have Wi-Fi. Fixing it was a huge PITA and involved a lot of phone tag when I could get time away from the sales floor, but I eventually emerged victorious. That is until the following year when it happened again with the same song. I think I still have a twitch whenever I hear it. This is why the people working the It's a Small World rides at Disney parks get breaks about as frequently as air traffic controllers do. Having to listen to one song all the time at work's bad enough, but that song? Torture. our second story. Want to go through pedestrian zone with your motorbike? You'll ride at a pedestrian pace. This happened yesterday. I was out for a run and was going through a park where there are some small, let's say, trails. It's in the city, so don't imagine mountains and such, just quite narrow, unpaved roads. Let's say narrow central parkways. If two people meet, one has to go slightly out of the way to pass, almost marginal for a small motorcycle. So this park, in a way, cuts my area in two. And if you want to transit to certain places, you have to go around, as I believe in any part of the world. Anyway, a lot of motorcycle users, the smaller ones as the bigger wouldn't fit, like delivery people, etc., tend to go through the park and its trails instead of taking the 5 minutes normal route. This is, of course, forbidden, against the law, and, of course, dangerous for the pedestrians, as there are a lot of families with small children learning to walk or bike, strollers, elders walking, etc. So as I was running, I was such a motorcycle about to come into the trail I was on, so I told the guy that he shouldn't come through here and go around. Quite politely, I must add. As a typical Greek guy, he started shouting that he can go wherever he wants, and I should shut up, and. So, okay, please be my guest and get in the trail. He's behind me, and if I don't move to the side, there's absolutely no way he can get through without hitting and injuring me. As you can guess, I never gave way, only for a couple of older ladies coming from the opposite side on their walk that were also critically staring at him. I also slowed my running to a point it was more of a walk. He had to stay behind me for about 5 minutes, which is less than the time it would have taken him to use the normal road. Of course, shouting the whole time, but who cares? I know it's not much, but I felt good. Most I see on bikes are bloody dangerous and shouldn't be on the roads, and especially not on pedestrianized walkways and trails. And our last story. Can't enjoy, or work in, my yard because of Karen. I bought my first house last year, excited to turn it into my dream home. It's small, but has a large yard that feels like a blank canvas. Spring and summer are my favorite times to be outside, especially since winters here can drag on forever. I've been working nonstop, putting in plants and making improvements. I dream of creating a peaceful, private space filled with blooming perennials and the sound of birds chirping away. But there's just one problem: my next-door neighbor. Her yard is twice the size of mine, but instead of enjoying her space, she's obsessed with what's happening in mine. Last fall, I decided to clear out the overgrown brush in the backyard, which was mostly invasive plants and weeds. It wasn't a pretty sight, but it did provide some privacy. After clearing it out, I thought I'd finally have the fresh start I needed. Instead, the neighbor took that as an opportunity to place a chair right on our property line, literally facing my yard. From that spot, she could see every single thing I did outside, and she wasn't subtle about watching either. Every time I was out working in the yard, whether planting flowers or just enjoying a cup of coffee on my patio, she'd be right there staring at me like I was a reality TV show she couldn't turn off. It made my skin crawl. And of course, she didn't stop at just watching. She'd make a point to come over and strike up a conversation, never really about anything meaningful, but always with a passive-aggressive edge. It felt like every time I was proud of something I'd done, she had a comment ready to knock me down. "Those flowers won't last through the winter, you know," she'd say, watching me plant perennials. "Seems like a waste of time." Or she'd comment on my choice of tools. "I don't know why you're using that shovel, you're just making it harder for yourself." It was relentless. I tried to be polite, but it was like she didn't even register that her comments were unwanted. I started wearing headphones to block her out, hoping she'd take the hint, but she didn't care. She'd still stroll over, tap me on the shoulder, and laugh as if we were best friends sharing a joke. It was infuriating. One Saturday afternoon, I was building a garden bed near the back of my yard when she popped up again. "You know, you should have asked me before you cleared out all that brush. It looked better before," she said, leaning over the property line as if she owned both yards. I couldn't take it anymore. "It's my yard," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though I was boiling inside. "I can do what I want with it." "Oh, I'm not saying you can't," she replied, smirking. "But it just feels like you don't care how your choices affect others. That brush gave me privacy too, you know." That's when it hit me. She wasn't just watching me, she thought she had some say in what I did with my yard. I bit my tongue and kept working, but inside I was already plotting how to regain my peace. A fence was the obvious solution, but with prices being what they were, it wasn't something I could afford this year. As the weeks passed, her interruptions became unbearable. Every time I made progress, there she was with more unwelcome advice and criticism. "You should really think about trimming those hedges more often," or "Are you sure you want to plant that tree there? It might block your view." It wasn't just annoying, it felt like she was trying to control what I did on my own property. One day, I even caught her sitting in that chair, scribbling notes on her notepad while looking at my yard. Was she planning something? I didn't know, but it was getting weird. Then she crossed the line, literally. I woke up one morning to find her in my yard, picking through the plants I just planted. I rushed outside. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Oh, don't worry," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I'm just making sure you're not planting anything invasive. You don't want these taking over, trust me." That was it. I'd had enough. I called the fence company that afternoon and got an estimate, even though I knew it would strain my budget. Privacy was worth every penny at this point. I told the fence guy to put me on the schedule as soon as possible. In the meantime, I set up a row of tall potted plants along the property line to block her view. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. When she saw them, she came over and started her usual comments. "Those won't do much for privacy, and I don't know why you'd put those there." But this time I didn't engage. I just smiled, waved, and went back inside, knowing the fence was coming soon. I didn't feel the need to argue. It was almost satisfying to know that soon she wouldn't be able to watch me at all. Fast forward to today. The fence is finally up, standing tall and proud along the property line. The first time she saw it, her face twisted into a look of disbelief. She hasn't said a word to me since. Now when I go outside, it's just me, my garden, and the peaceful sounds of nature. Exactly how I wanted it to be. I still have a lot of work to do in the yard, but at least now I can do it without feeling like I'm constantly being watched. My dream of turning my backyard into a sanctuary is back on track, and I'm finally enjoying the space I've worked so hard to create. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.